Hi, this is Paul. I want to do a little bit of commentary on Jordan Peterson's conversation with Matthew McConaughey. I'm not going to give any inline commentary, like watch the clip and give a commentary, but just a few points that occurred to me as I watched the video. The first thing is sort of the Jordan Peterson health watch that a bunch of us are sort of watching him, hoping, he can get back to his fighting form. I don't mean that in a negative way, but all right. This was the best that I've really seen him. He's, of course, been on Michaela's podcast a few times, and in fact, a conversation with Matthew McConaughey on Michaela's podcast. But this was Jordan flying solo. Some of the little book introductions he's given, he seemed a little fragile, but he seemed rested and a little bit more of his old self. And so, all right. That's, of course, a Matthew McConaughey line was from Dazed and Confused. Status binds and blinds. A lot of the conversation was about status and fame, and obviously you're talking to a celebrity, so there's some of that, but also Jordan Peterson's life has changed since 2016 considerably, and now Jordan has to adjust to being a different person. Now, this impacts conversation partners, and I became aware of this in my 20s when I was a missionary in the Dominican Republic, because you go and you live in a third world country, and especially partly by the relationship between the Dominican Republic and the United States. I was just testing the mic. That's why I had those headphones on. One of the things that you learn, especially when I moved into a small town in the Dominican Republic, that my white skin, my North American status, especially working with very poor people like the Haitian people I worked with, afforded you a certain status, which made finding friendships, building relationships a little bit difficult, because always in the back of your mind you're wondering, do they want to know me for my own connection? Do they want to get something out of me? Is this a mercenary relationship? And that's a big deal. It's kind of the I've mentioned this in a conversation recently. It's kind of the hot girl problem. The most very beautiful women that I know at some point have to come to terms with their beauty, which is just a sort of general status upgrade for anyone who's attracted to them, and that sometimes means that they're seen as a competitor or a predator with other women, and of course men are interested, and what they want to know is, I want to be loved for me, not just how I look. And okay, well, that plays on this whole status business. So I'm not surprised that Jordan, could pick up a relationship with someone like Matthew McConaughey, because at this point they're both wealthy and they both have reach. They both have to deal with fame, and that means an alteration in lifestyle. And so to watch them comparing notes about it, that really didn't surprise me at all. Now, a couple of interesting points from Matthew McConaughey. Now, I, of course, have watched him in various movies and never paid a whole lot of attention to him until he sort of came up on the Jordan Peterson landscape. And so some of his ideas I found interesting. His flip on antinatalism. Jordan Peterson at one point points out he had a debate with an antinatalist. And I found Matthew McConaughey's take on antinatalism very similar to my move on atheistic nihilism, which is, hey, if it's all loss, who cares? Go for it. And that's sort of my take on, okay, if it's all just meaningless, well then, who are you to come in with an ought that says I can't impose meaning on the world? It's sort of a move that a lot of atheists make, but mine includes God and all the machinery that I have. So I thought his take on antinatalism, in fact, his flip on antinatalism, because Peterson sort of came in using antinatalism as a negative thing, and McConaughey sort of flipped it. I found that to be an interesting move. McConaughey kept talking about faith at one point, which was very interesting, because his I'm now tempted to read his book. His take on faith was very interesting. It was very pragmatic. It wasn't, say, confessional like mine in the way. I'm, of course, a Christian minister who is a ordained minister in a confessional denomination, which may put some constraints on me, obviously. But basically, and I only listened to this once so far. I'll have to listen to this again. Faith for McConaughey was sort of a positive hope, even an assurance to justify and encourage risk. Again, part of what, if you look at my conversation with the Common Toad, that's actually, I put that up as the marquee on the channel right now, so it's easy to find, because I thought that conversation as an introduction to me and what I'm doing was quite good and quite helpful. Actually, I found a lot of similarities between some of Matthew McConaughey's approaches to where we're at in a very pragmatic way to be similar to some of my more apologetic moves. And so I found that to be interesting in the video. It's quite clear Jordan Peterson keeps bringing it back to the fame conversation. And to me, this is sort of parallel to my kids watching The Office. This is what Jordan's life has undergone a dramatic transformation. He's famous now. He's wealthy now. That affords some good things, some opportunities. It also limits him and affords some undesirable attention. I thought Matthew McConaughey's take on, well, I'm an actor and so I play these other people. Why don't I play bringing my son to see the fire truck? And I'm just a normal person and I work in front of cameras all the time. Now I'm going to work in front of the paparazzi camera. I gained a lot of respect for Matthew McConaughey and his approach to some of this. I found it a really good conversation, which quite frankly is not always an easy thing for people with a lot of status. And that's why one of the things with my conversations I'm always quite conscious of are status differentials, because status differentials complicate conversations, because conversations are highly nuanced things. So I also found Matthew McConaughey's interest in third-person visualization or perspective. And this, I just finished this morning a conversation with John Vervaeke and Mary Cohen, the second conversation that we've done quite recently. And, you know, we did a lot of conversation about distributed cognition and what that means. So, yeah, really interesting. Really, really interesting. So, made me want to buy the book. I'm a lot more curious now about Matthew McConaughey and the fact that the book isn't, I've never been a People magazine reader. The book isn't a celebrity tattletale. Here's the inside scoop on the other stars. I also found Matthew McConaughey's conversation about his mother and how fame impacted his mother and how it took about 8 years for McConaughey to sort of come to resolution on that. And he did, and just sort of let his mom be his mom. There was a lot of wisdom in McConaughey, and he reflected a considerable amount of wisdom in terms of, you know, who he is and how he's grown into the life he had to grow into. I was quite impressed, and again, really made me want to read the book. So again, I wanted to do a very short video about this conversation. I'd recommend watching it. Peterson, I think, is heading towards his old self. Matthew McConaughey, very interesting guy. Very interesting conversation. I kind of want to read his book now, but I've got a lot of books I want to read, so we'll see if I do it. Hopefully there's an audiobook, and hopefully McConaughey reads it. I'd really love to hear him read his own memoir of sorts in his own words. Very interested about his relationship with his father, with his mother. So yeah, all in all, great conversation. Highly recommend it. Give it a listen.